We know a lot about the life of the Apostle Paul. We have a good deal of biographical information on him in the book of Acts, his call experience on the road to Damascus and the churches they planted. And, you can go to the back of your Bible and you'll find maps. You can Google Paul's missionary journeys. And so we know the journeys they took and the cities that he went to. And we know a lot of the people that he worked with. Many of the challenges that he faced. We have a lot of autobiographical information from the Apostle Paul in his letters. So we know quite a bit about him. But one of the interesting statements that he makes is near the end of 2 Corinthians. And it's raised a lot of questions and some humorous statements. And so I just want to talk today briefly about what he says and then how that connects with us. So in 2 Corinthians 12, he says, I must go on boasting. Though there's nothing to be gained by it, I will go on to visions and revelations of the Lord. I know a man of Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows, because I don't even know what happened. There were three heavens. There's the atmosphere, that's the first heaven. Outer space is the second heaven, that's where the stars and everything is. And then the third heaven is where God dwells. They're not three heavens like Mormons teach, or just one heaven like we think of. But we use the words atmosphere and space or universe. They would use first heaven, second heaven, and third heaven. So that's where he went to, the place where God dwells. So verse 3, and I know that this man was caught up into paradise, whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows this. I don't know. I just know I saw some things. And he heard things that cannot be told, which man may not utter. On behalf of this man I will boast, but on my own behalf I will not boast except in my weaknesses. It's really, Apostle Paul is talking about himself here in third person. Though if I should wish to boast, I would not be a fool, for I would be speaking the truth, but I refrain from it so that no one may think more of me than he sees of me or hears from me. So to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, so Apostle Paul's making clear that he's the one that saw all of this, and keep me from getting conceited, a thorn was given me in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me, to keep me from becoming conceited. There, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I'll boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, then, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I'm weak, then I am strong. So I want to talk about this thorn in the flesh that the Apostle Paul had. First of all, I want to make clear that you and I have things in life that we bring on ourselves. There are things we suffer because of choices that we make, because of actions that we get involved in, and we can't blame them on God, so to speak. Like we shouldn't have done that. You have people that physically they're a wreck because of the way they've eaten over the years, because they have smoked and consumed alcohol at high levels. They've done drugs. They have mistreated their body, and now they have physical issues as a result. They brought it on themselves. But the reality is there are also things that happen that have nothing to do with choices and all that we make. And so some people have physical issues that are not because of life choices that they made. There are people who have diabetes and it has nothing to do with diet or anything. They have a severe case of diabetes, and some of them it's genetic and they inherited it. Some people have heart issues, and no matter how much they exercise and all, they just genetically. Some people get cancer for no known reason based on what they've done. So we have a lot of things that happen that we bring on ourselves. We have a lot of things that happen that have no connection at all with life decisions that we have made. This one, pretty clearly, is not because of something the Apostle Paul has done. Okay? So this is not skin cancer because he was exposed to the sun all the time and didn't take any precautions. This is something that was beyond his control. It's not related to any kind of life decisions that the Apostle Paul has made. So something that was sent outside, there's nothing you can do about it. So I'll make that part clear. So the reality is you have things in your life as well that happen to you that the reality is they're not your fault in the sense of it's a result of some action or actions that you have taken in your life. The second thing is we don't know what it was. There are all kinds of speculations. I know one person likes to say that it was his wife, but I don't think that's the case. here. Um, it almost certainly seems to be something physical. A thorn was given me in the flesh, so it's not like insomnia or something like that. It's something physical. Whatever it was, it is to some extent debilitating for him, obviously, because 3 times he pleaded that it would leave, and it creates a weakness. And so all of us has some physical things that are not debilitating. For years, ever since college, I have struggled with plantar fasciitis, which is heel pain, but there are things I can do to mitigate that. Um, and so there are stretches that I do. I wear insoles in my shoes. Mine's the result of high arches. So there's certain shoes I won't wear. I don't go barefoot, even though I love to walk barefooted. I don't do it often because that can tend to inflame it. I don't run. I'm not a runner. And the reason is because running inflames it. And I know that. I like to play tennis, but I know that if I play tennis, it's going to hurt for a day or two afterwards. I love hiking, but I have certain hiking boots that I wear with certain insoles that I wear, and to, again, mitigate that. So there are things sometimes that we have physically that we can take actions to reduce the effect of those. My wife is pre-diabetic, and she can control that through diet and exercise. Otherwise, she'll have to be on medication. And so probably this is not one of those. This is probably something that's very debilitating. As a matter of fact, in all likelihood, the Apostle Paul was uh, uh, had difficulty seeing, had some kind of eye problem. In all likelihood, this came from his Damascus Road experience. The Bible says they saw a bright and blinding light. Matter of fact, for the first 3 days, he couldn't even see because the light was that bright. And so probably the bright light of seeing Jesus did eye damage that was irreparable and was in many ways debilitating. You're talking about people that walked everywhere they went. As a matter of fact, if you read the letters of Apostle Paul, he's always talking about these people who were there who helped him and who were a necessity to his ministry and all. Probably in all likelihood, these are people who helped the Apostle Paul move around, help him navigate, because he was, I don't think he was completely blind, but I think he was had significantly impaired eyesight. A couple of times he says, this ending to the letter I write in my own hand. You see how big I write it? Like he had to write big to see it. You know, I remember those days, there weren't glasses, there wasn't LASIK surgery. You couldn't make a bigger font on your tablet. Like and I think it was in many ways debilitating, make things difficult on him. And he talks about how his appearance, he probably was always kind of squinting and, because he couldn't see. And so it probably affected the way he looked because of his facial expressions. And so he begs the Lord to remove that. Man, if I could see, think about how much more I could do for the kingdom. I can hear him wording that because that's how you and I would word it. If I could, if this was not here, just think about all I could do, for God's kingdom kind of thing. But verse 9 is so important. He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. I don't care what your debilitating physical issue is. My grace is enough for you. As a matter of fact, sometimes God's grace and strength are shown off through our weaknesses more than through our strengths. When people see the challenges and how we've handled them and how we've dealt with them. And the reality is, the people that I've admired the most over the years of being around lots of believers as a pastor are people that have real challenges. Some of them are physical, some are otherwise, but I've known a lot of people that have struggled with a whole host of, I know people that have struggled with back issues. I've known people in wheelchairs or had to walk on a cane. I've known people that have eye issues, people that are severely diabetic, people with food allergy issues, people with arthritis issues, and just, the list goes on and on and on of people that have a thorn in the flesh, something that makes it much more difficult for them to operate, if I can use that term. And yet they've just consistently been faithful because God's grace is sufficient. So I want to say, I don't know. If you're watching this, you may be in great health. But the day is going to come where a thorn in the flesh arrives. It'll happen. Maybe you do have a thorn in the flesh. Maybe you do have food allergy issues and they affect the way you conduct your life. And you're always having to think, does this have nuts? Does this have gluten? Does it, whatever it is. Maybe you have, arthritis, and there are things that you would like to do that are just, difficult. Man, God's grace is sufficient. A man that I admired greatly, who is now with the Lord, played the saxophone for years, played in our church band for years, and then developed TMJ and was no longer able to play the saxophone. Well, instead of moaning and groaning and complaining, he took up the cello because it didn't require him to use his mouth to play. And he just kept on with a great attitude. And just watching how God's grace was sufficient when that thorn in the flesh came, and something he had done to serve the Lord for years, he was no longer able to do it, but he still continued to serve the Lord. And so I don't know what your thorn in the flesh is, but I want to encourage you with the words from 2 Corinthians 12. God says to you, my grace is sufficient. And as a matter of fact, through your weakness, through that thorn in the flesh, God may be glorified in ways that you never even possibly imagined. So as you struggle through this day, or maybe you don't, but when the day comes and you struggle with physical affliction, remember that God's grace is sufficient for us. And through our weaknesses, God's strength is made known. So God bless you. I hope you have a great day. Fantastic week.